Well, folks, I'll tell you what, ever since that BBC Panorama interview, the spin machine, orchestrated not just by the woke establishment but the mainstream media and now big tech, has gone into overdrive. They are quite literally painting Nigel Farage as some sort of heir to Putin, Hitler, most evil man in the whole wide world. Now, let me put it to you straight. If I thought Nigel Farage, if I had an inkling that he was anything that the mainstream media paint him as, I wouldn't be making videos supporting him or reform. He isn't a racist, and if you looked into the context of what he said during that interview about Putin, you will see he's not a fan of the guy whatsoever. Nigel actually said he's not a fan of Putin, but NATO's actions gave Putin the excuse he wanted to start the Ukraine war. Farage even slagged him off for that. And yes, recently declassified documents have come to light, showing that back in 1990, Western leaders promised Mikhail Gorbachev, the then Soviet leader, that NATO would not be expanding eastwards. And when it did, bang, that was all Putin wanted. But to the left, the mainstream media, big tech, the woke establishment, context is unnecessary, of course. And when I say every mainstream media organisation has turned on him, they have. That's including GB News. They're all calling him a Putin appeaser, when all the guy's doing is pointing out the facts. Even Talk TV's Julia Hartley-Brewer got into a Twitter fight with Beverly Turner over it by calling him a Putin appeaser. Mark Dolan, the GB News stooge, he compared Farage to Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister who appeased Hitler back in the 30s. And then there was the bombshell, of course, by Google, who demonetised Reform's YouTube channel and effectively blocked their advertisement accounts. And by doing this, they are effectively stopping the Reform Party message from being shared out fairly, and I think it amounts to election interference. But then Nigel Farage publicly took them on, and within hours they got their account back. I mean, this sort of thing has no place in a Western democracy. Here we have a guy, the leader of a legitimate political party, campaigning during a general election, and you've got the powers that be deliberately misconstruing what he's said and completely dismissing the context of what he talks about. People need to understand that the politics of the Eastern Bloc, Eastern Europe, they are far more complex than we understand. And the irony here of a company like Google silencing a political leader's voice is just like Putin. That's what he does. Putin silences political opposition and effectively censors them for life. And this is effectively what Google have done. They don't like Nigel Farage because they say he's appeasing Putin when he's not. And yet they behave like Putin by silencing him, thus proving him right. And so, in a nutshell, and to give you the context, the real context of what Nigel Farage meant when he was on that Panorama interview, it's this. Provocation and justification are two separate concepts. The West suggesting Ukraine join NATO in 2008 and negotiated for EU association pre-2014 was provocation. However, it was not justification for war. This is Farage's position. He is neither a fan of Vladimir Putin, nor does he think that Putin's invasion of the Ukraine was justified. But NATO did indeed provoke it. And where's the lie in that? And so Farage not only called out Putin and his unjustifiable attack on the Ukraine, but he also called out NATO's narrative. And that is why everyone on social media, the usual lot, they are all in hysterics over the whole thing, because they swallow everything that the mainstream media tells them. And that's that. I'm Baz49. Thanks for listening, and until the next time, Roger Trout.